From multiple painted and designed locations in Minneapolis or near enough, this is Nice Games Club, the show where Nice Game Devs talk gaming and game development.
I'm Ellen Burns-Johnson, and I make nice games.
I'm Stephen McGregor, and I make nice games.
And I'm Arthur Croy, I too make nice games. In this episode, I talk with Sébastien Deguy, creator of Substance and now Vice President of 3D and Immersive at Adobe, and Jérémie Noguer, Principal Product Manager, about developing the leading tools for 3D texturing and material creation. And so, everyone's ready. Let's start. So I did this interview with these fine folks about a week or two ago, but I wanted to bring my nice co-hosts in to sort of preview it before we get into it. Do either of you work in any 3D tools?
In high school, I messed with like a 3D modeling tool, but not like a artistic art modeling tool. It was an engineering modeling tool called, what did I use? I used Inventor in high school, and then in college, I used another program I can't remember the name of right now. But I enjoy them quite a lot, so I'm really interested to see, because like I've tried every once in a while to branch back into 3D modeling.
Well, that's the difference here, is that Substance Painter and Designer are tools for texturing and materials.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
And so I've dabbled a little bit, but what's interesting about these tools is they're sort of industry standard, right? They're the top tools for texturing in AAA and in high-end indie, and now increasingly in film and in other industries. Ellen, do you have any experience with this kind of stuff?
Not with texturing. And thinking way back to high school, I did do some work in AutoCAD, and I've used SketchUp in the last couple of years, but that's not textured, you know? So I did try to learn Maya once, and it was one of the few things where I actually got scared of what I was learning, because I didn't feel like I knew enough at all to even begin grasping it.
It was really cool to talk about what they thought the tool would be when they made it, what it became, being bought out by Adobe. And I think should be interesting for our listeners who either are familiar with these tools and are wondering about its future, because I ask a lot of questions about like things people are nervous about, pricing and about the future, and I get to all of that. But also people who have never used these tools before or just heard of them and don't know what they're about, to actually get a sense of what they are and why they might be good for your workflow.
Like sometimes what you try to learn in a previous state of yourself and find difficulty doing, if you're able to find like a different inroad to that, then you can sometimes find more success. I hope this is like an inroad for me.
Why don't we start by, for each of you, introduce yourselves and what you do on the team.
Jérémie, you want to start?
Sure, I'll start. So I'm Jérémie Noguer. I'm Principal Product Manager at Adobe for 3DI products. And before that, I was working at Algorithmic with Sébastien for about 13 years, so working on the substance tools.
And I am Sébastien Deguy, founder of Algorithmic, who got acquired by Adobe last year, makers of Substance, and now I'm leading and the vice president of 3DI. What Jérémie was saying with 3DI it is 3D and Immersive. It's a new division inside of Adobe for everything 3D, and it's made of the Substance tools, but only also Dimension, also Mixamo, and more, and content as well. So I'm very, very happy to be here.
Yeah. It's exciting to hear about the whole department you lead at Adobe now, because of all the different tools coming together and the cross-pollination and all that stuff. And I'll ask you some specifics about that. But why don't we start with the news, the announcements that you guys made in a keynote last week about the latest updates to your suite.
Yeah, so we have a bunch of updates that have come out since the keynote, or still yet to come out. So I think the most exciting to me is Substance Painter, just because it's a product that I've been kind of working on since the very beginning of its inception, and kind of work on the design and roadmap over time, and so we have a release coming up on Wednesday, actually, so 2 days from now. And this new release, we were trying to focus on improving the workflow. So people are working with Substance Painter and they're mostly happy, but there's always these little things here and there that kind of make your workflow a little slower. They're just like a annoyance every day. So we're trying to fix those. So one of the main pain point was the export process. And so we spent a lot of time, spent months designing a new export workflow from Substance Painter so that it's easier to use, it's more customizable, you have more control over the output. And as well, we added some cool fun feature along the way, like being able to export your objects with displacement and distillation, for example, which is really cool when you're building an asset. You add all these details in the height map to have displacement and add additional shapes on your object. You can now export that as one final mesh that you can then render out or 3D print, for example, after the fact. And that really went hand in hand with our automatic UV feature that we introduced late last year, where you can bring in any mesh and we'll just do all the UV layout and UV unwrap for you. So that works pretty great. We had a lot of people happy about the feature, but they wanted to be able to export that mesh in a way that it's usable by a game engine or by anything else afterwards. So we improved that part of the process as well.
Yeah, seeing the in the keynote, they talked a little bit about the enter into using this tool for 3D printing, and that really seems to be a bit of a pattern that that your tools are now serving more and more constituencies, more audiences. Can you talk a little bit about sort of keeping all those plates spinning, and maybe what's your focus? Do you say, oh, this is a cool thing that came out of our labs, and here's who it would be cool for, let's go for it? Or is it more of a customer based, this is what people are asking for and we don't serve, let's look into it?
It's a good question, because it's actually a constant debate, and also a craft and art and everything in between, and luck as well. So sometimes we just have like some of our geniuses at home who come up with something that we realize, oh wow, wait, that can change this and that. We should absolutely release it, even though no one has been asking for it. It's these type of things. We have two classifications. We have like white magic and black magic features. And the black magic features are the ones that nobody was expecting, and are bringing something that is really like new and innovative in the pure sense of the word. Whereas white magic is something that's been asked by the community, and it's a market pull more than a techno push. But it has to stay magical, right? It's still white magic, because we want to make sure that not only do we answer what was required and asked for, but in a way that is still magical and still very, very well thought of. So yeah, but it's an art form, really. Like there is no, I mean, if there was a rule to make good products, everybody would follow it, right? And so we've been, like, I guess, lucky. We've been lucky, talented. We've been working our asses off. But the truth is, it's a mix. It's a mix of things, and sometimes it's just like because we have the time, because we have the opportunity, because we found something, because we haven't found something, because we've been working with the right users, and to your point, Mark, in these new areas, new industries, sometimes they think completely differently from the game developers, and so they come to us and say, "Well, I'd like to do this," or they come to us and say, "Well, I'd like to have that." And usually, when you dig a little bit and ask, but why, really? Why? What do you want to do? And then they explain what they want to do, and you realize, oh, okay, maybe it's something that we already have, or indeed it's a way of presenting it, or it's a way of using it. It's a workflow thing more than a feature per se.
Right.
So it's always good to dig into the question more. But yeah.
My next question was going to be about, like, as you introduce these new elements or decide to focus on refining the existing elements, as you described, the two different kinds of magic, I was going to ask, like, do you drill in on one thing at a time, or do you spread out on whatever's interesting? But it sounds like that mix changes over time, depending on which of the features you're working
absolutely.
on.
Yeah, it does change. And absolutely. It changes all the time. And that's driving everybody crazy, literally, because it's complicated to make plans, really, because not only do we change our minds completely, like from one day to the other, but I take that as a very important thing, actually, to be able to change our minds. So maybe not like every day, but every sprint almost, right? Every 2 weeks or every 4 weeks, we come up with new ideas and with things that, okay, now that we have this done, maybe we pause it, maybe we change our mind, we change it, and we do something completely different. We try to avoid that as much as we can because it can be disrupting to the teams. But yeah, that happens. And the truth is, we have no written plan for the next 10 years. At best, we have something for 1 year. But really at best, right? The truth is, like, it's more like, okay, we know what we want to have in 3 months, maybe in 6 months. But in a year from now, we wish we had this, right?
Mm-hmm. And is that a result of a guiding philosophy, or is it a result of this is how we work and how we work best? And even if it makes us nervous, that's the way we do it.
I think that's just how we've found out that we work best over time. By just winging it most of the time. It turns out that it's been working out great until now. But again, it's kind of an alchemy of talking to the users all the time, having amazing developers and engineers. Building the tools, having artists internally that actually use the tool, having the product manager, product people actually users of the tool. All that kind of ecosystem internally allows us to kind of switch priorities really fast and adapt to whatever happens or whatever we think is best for the tool next. And until now, we've been able to deliver those updates every 3-4 months. In a way that, for now, people are still happy with us.
So, it sounds like it's the result of a lot of experimentation. That feedback process. I'm thinking of like the workflow that we as indie developers have, which is like constant play testing and throwing out ideas we're pretty sure are bad. But that has to be a much more managed process for a product like yours. Or does it?
No, it's the same thing. I mean, it's a product, and eventually, what you want to make sure of is that it works, right? And it's useful to the users, or it's playable. It's the same thing. Like if it's a game, if it's not fun, you've lost the soul of the thing, right? So if it's not interesting, if it's not bringing something, the same goes for a tool. Really, if at some point you bore too much, if at some point you annoy too much because it's so clunky. I mean, you lose the people, you lose the users. It makes sense, right? So it has to be adapted and to be fit to the real world. And we do that all the time. Like Jérémie can talk about it. Like a long time ago when we developed Substance Designer, Jérémie here spent like days at Naughty Dog, for instance, like trying to understand what they wanted to come up with, what they needed really. And we had an idea where we wanted the tool to go, but they helped us do these micro changes every day of direction, so that in the end it's a way more efficient way of making progress, because you don't have to do these big shifts like every month or so. Like every day, if you talk to users and you realize, okay, I have to change this and that, you can do it on a regular basis and not have to. Or do it at a very cost-effective way, in a very cost-effective way. Make sure you adapt your tool to the user. So I think it may, even for me as the manager of that thing, like when I think about it, I think we've been super efficient because of that, because we care, and because we ask the questions and we listen to the users, and it's a win actually situation even for the builders. It's not you don't lose anything doing that. I think that.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of experimentation at the beginning with Substance Designer, and that's why that tool took a long time to get adopted, because we were learning at the same time how to build a successful tool, and spending like pretty much, I think probably half my time for maybe 2 or 3 years at studios, like working with the people that would ultimately use the tool, helped us kind of understand how to build successful tool like this, and we apply that to Substance Painter and to Substance Alchemist. So now we're now a little more. It kind of works a little better without experimenting as much, but it's still a very much kind of organic process.
Yeah, it sounds like it's that sort of unknowability of where it's going to be in years or months from now, that comes from two places. That comes from the philosophy you have making it, but also from your user-guided approach. So can you talk a little bit about, say, maybe a couple of years ago, say before the Adobe acquisition, where you might have guessed you'd have moved compared to where you actually did move?
When it comes to product?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's like you don't seem to be wedded to any particular goal. You sort of take where it makes sense to go. But surely over the years, you've guessed where it might be in 5 years. Do you have any example of sort of the biggest surprises and the changes of directions that you've taken?
Oh, we've taken so many. Yeah, for instance, like at first, like the very, very early innings of the products, we thought like it was going to be interesting to visual effects houses, and it's not what happened in the first place. The first users to pick it up were game developers, and actually, it was not for the reason we thought it would be. Same thing. We've been wrong all the way, I guess. But anyway, like one of the reasons why we thought people would be interested in using our tools were like the size of the files, because they're procedural files for textures. So we thought like, okay, this is where they will see the most value, because you can not only can you distribute them more easily and more faster way, but also you can have dynamic textures. And we thought, okay, this is super advanced technologies. This is why we're winning. But in fact, the people what they were using is they were using this procedural way of designing bitmaps in the end, right? So they would bake out the result of a procedural graph, and they would never use the procedural aspect of it. Really, most of the users in the end never use them. But like during the authoring phase, it was super useful. So we thought it'd be all the way, but yeah, they stopped at some point and say, "Oh, I'm good now," and it helped me, and so we can go there. Many changes we made. Also, the Substance Painter, for instance, used to be thought as a feature in Substance Designer at first. So we wanted to have this 3D painting capability inside of Substance Designer, but very quickly we realized, well, let's do prototype on the side so that we don't take too much time from the team to work on that. So it was a separate architecture. And then we quickly realized, okay, in fact, these are not the same users. So same thing. We realized after the fact that what we did was actually what we needed to do, because we didn't want to target the same kind of users. And today we are super happy to have done that separation, because the audience of Substance Painter is way larger than the audience of Substance Designer, and it's a very different audience, and they talk to each other. And so we created this ecosystem. So after the fact, I wrote actually a white paper explaining the reasoning behind and the why it worked that way, and why it's so important to follow a few rules that we discovered along the way. But we did discover these rules along the way and understood them after we applied them, really. Right. So this is an example. And when it comes to markets, actually we thought architecture would be one of the first to pick up the tools, and actually it's one of the last. It's complicated but then it's a question of like a very fragmented market, and there are not that many very well organized big studios in architecture compared to industrial design or games or visual effects. So like we keep understanding what's going on by like just going and trying and failing, but failing fast and cheap. And yeah, I know we keep hearing that, right? Fail fast and cheap. But it's so true. In fact, like if you can do that, you can survive, you can then adapt and then be successful. And I think we've been nimble. And this is something I want to make sure we keep here at Adobe still. And I see that in many areas. Actually, I've been surprised how like a common thinking it is really at Adobe. But like the idea of like failing fast and cheap, and understanding needs, like doing tests, and like changing very quickly the result, the feature, the tool, etc., etc. So I want us to keep that as much as possible.
Yeah, and you listed a couple of examples of those industries that maybe you thought would pick it up, but over time they came around, right? It's being used in those fields now. And is that something that when that happened, was it like, oh, that's fun, or was it like, finally? Like, how did that feel?
Well, it was more. I mean, if I want to be nice with us, I would say finally.
Yeah.
Because we've been thinking from the past that it would be interesting for all these areas, really. But like the truth is also that we could not anticipate some market changes and some big movements and especially the timing. The timing we could not anticipate. Like two examples. One is PBR, really physically based rendering techniques. When they got adopted, suddenly every studio in the world wanted to adopt it, and they needed to redo all their textures, right? So when they realized they needed to redo all their textures, and it was way more complicated to do them now than it was with the good old way of like having shaders. They could not use tools like Photoshop anymore, so they realized they looked around and said, okay, what tools do we have at our disposal? And we were like, in the end, oh, yeah, we're ready, because Substance Designer had been here for years, really. And so we were ready, but we were ready. So it's a bit of finally it's happening, but it was not like we did not anticipate exactly what the PBR would be, what it would be really that would happen that would make these people like change their mind and think, okay, now I need to redo all my textures. Mm-hmm. So it's we keep answering your questions by it's a mix.
Yeah.
And all of the above. Sorry about that. We should be more assertive, I guess. But the truth is, yes, it's we've been thinking about like all these industries. Yes, they need 3D visualization. Obviously, yes, they all need real-time visualization, interactivity. So we anticipate all that. When it will be here, we don't know really. So we try to be as ready as possible. And because of the big technological advance that we have, and I'm proud. We work with, as Jérémie said, like with the best researchers, with the best engineers. I mean, like they're awesome, and we've been working all on that for years. I've been working on that field for 20 years. We're more than ready, right? And back to my point earlier, when some of these industries come and say, "Well, I need to do this," and you realize, oh, it's for that. Actually, we've been ready for 10 years. And it's here. You can take it and we can turn it into something that you can use very easily.
Yeah.
So,
my background is in video editing and motion graphics. And so when the whole indie film industry moved to Premiere Pro, I remember thinking like, it's been there waiting for you this whole time. And so that sounds a little bit like what you're describing. It's like you'd been... you didn't chase these fields. You just built good tools that were waiting for them when the timing was right. Yeah. And
exactly.
And you're describing a kind of that's this philosophy of flexibility, which extends not just to the your audiences and the purposes of your tools, but the workflows. One of the things that I really enjoyed seeing in the keynote that piqued my interest was using AI in your tools. Can you talk a little bit about what that brings for not just the results, but also just the workflow for users?
Yeah, we're exploring more and more AI, and now that we're part of Adobe, it's even more fun just because Adobe has this gigantic research department with very, very talented people that have been working on AI for years. AI that's been applied to Photoshop and to various features in Adobe tools that you may not know are using AI, but actually are. And so we're very lucky to have this team of researchers working with us. And where AI really can help us is every time we talk about AI in our tool, it's like you always have people like saying, "Oh, well, we're going to replace the artist." Or,
right.
Our job is over. Truth is, the way we use AI, the way we want to use AI, is just to empower the artists more, and really just to where there is something that require a task that's no added artistic value. Why would artists spend hours and hours doing that task? Well, a machine could do it for you, because it's really just a machine task, a task that could be just as well being done by a machine as by an artist. And so for this task, AI can come into play, and we've seen it, for example, with the delighter in Alchemist, removing shadows and highlight from a photo. I mean, you can go in Photoshop and do it, and it's going to take you 4 hours of little by little painting out the shadows. Mm-hmm. It's not fun. There's no added value. Yeah. If a machine can do it for you, then great. And there's a lot of cases like this, like for example, the UVs. Right now, our automatic UVs don't use any AI, but they could in the future. And typically, UV is something where a machine could very well do it better than you do, and in less time, and you wouldn't lose any of your artistic input on the object, because in the end, what matters is the materials and the textures in the model itself. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of spaces where AI can really just help us getting more productive and creating better art in the end.
Yeah. You've hinted at a big benefit of your being part of Adobe now, and now that it's been a year. What's the new normal for this now that you're part of this larger group and have access to all these different technologies that you can roll into your products?
I think I'll let Seb answer the question. I just want to say one thing is that funny thing is that we came to Adobe first. We kind of discovered that huge research part of Adobe that people are not aware of. And the funny thing is there were a lot of engineers that have been doing 3D research for years at Adobe, waiting for Adobe to actually build 3D tools so that the research can be used in actual products. So we have all these researchers coming and like telling us, what can I do for you? Like, have this, like, look at that. That would be amazing in your tool. So it's a really fun place to be in.
Nice to have all those people knocking at your door, right?
Oh yeah. And from day one, actually, there was a case from day one. I remember like a few days after the acquisition was completed, I landed in San Francisco, and like I check my emails when I get signal again, and I have like, okay, you want to be at the office like in 2 hours because I want to meet you, and I was like from Gavin, the head of the research, and he wanted to dump his like all these ideas in my brain. I was like, what? It's too many. But, that's awesome. So yeah, that's the part that got us excited. Like there are a few things that got us excited about the, joining Adobe, which were, like access to that, world-class, like 200 people, like researchers, who have been working on, 3D stuff, waiting in anticipation for 3D products, more 3D products, and more, and such a division that we were about to create to come up with all these new tools, like to integrate all these new ideas into these tools and see them like take life really. And so you will start seeing more and more of that. And so I'm very excited about this. Also, what got excited was obviously the link between all the other tools like Photoshop and After Effects and Premiere and Illustrator with our own tools, right? And so how can we combine these tools to have like complete workflows for creatives to find their way of like even more creativity and more efficiency, right? So there is no 3D without 2D. There is I anticipate more and more 2D design being powered by 3D or enhanced or augmented. Adobe wanted to embrace the future with interactivity, with a feature of storytelling. So it has to be real time. It has to be interactive. So here we will be playing a big role. So it's the new normal. I mean, today the normal is like, it's a new normal right now for everybody, I guess. But, the new normal is really, okay, we've passed this first year of integration, which has required a lot of work but very quickly we've been able to actually connect with the tech teams and get some tech from here and there. Like for instance, in Photoshop and in After Effects, it's called the patch match. Mm-hmm. And it's a technology that actually we reuse in Alchemist. So in Substance Alchemist now you have patch match, but we applied it onto materials instead of being applied either on one static image or a video. Now we apply it on full materials, so several layers. So that's the kind of thing we're seeing. Mm. And we started the co-developing with other tools like new pieces of technologies. We've started working on like a UI framework. There is also the design team inside of Adobe is one of the best kept secret of the industry. These guys are awesome. Like they think about like, well, okay, like the design in its pure, like more noble form, like what the users want really, what tools can we do, what rules can we invent for that interaction, for the experience, for the UI to be as efficient, as future-proof as possible, and as adapted to the user. So these guys, the team helps us tremendously when it comes to coming up with or improving our own designs and our own ideas of products, right? And then obviously there is this whole the marketing side of things, and marketing is not only like communication; it's also like the thinking about like how to monetize, what kind of market do we want to go after. So back to our points before, which was like before we would go like by ear, right? Here we want to have a little bit more foresight, and so we can use that. So yeah, I mean it's at the same time, so it's a big corporation, so that means that it moves more slowly, obviously. But because we have this new division inside of it, and we're very much in incubation zone. We're treated as such, and so we can move faster. We can still see. We have our substance3d.com website. It's still here. It helps us like communicate more directly. We have in-house. We have our sales team, and we use the bigger sales team. So I'm giving you like a lot of information here, but like this is the idea of like combining the power and the flexibility, and try not to go too much on one direction, right? So it's it's trying to strike a balance here.
Yeah. One of the I'm a heavy user of the Creative Cloud, and when things like features in Photoshop would show up in After Effects, like I'd been using those tools long enough to still be amazed by that. And as you described, being able to take those technologies, is that something at the engineering level as you develop features for your product portfolio? Do you have to think about making like modular plugins that you can then offer across the company? And how does that change the way you develop the products?
No, absolutely. We've identified a few core components that we need to share. Like, I can give you the example of a viewer, a 3D viewer. Like, everybody wants a 3D viewer now. And so we're working on like, one that is modular enough so that we can share it. These are the kind of things like exchange of data. What kind of data can we exchange? Like what kind of format do we want to embrace? That kind of things. Like on the other side, like we like very much like what's called CC libraries. So having like in the future all the substance tools and the 3D tools access to the libraries of assets that you've been working on all the other Creative Cloud tools really. And it's amazing to be able to just like load let's say a Photoshop brush or a Illustrator design that you've been working on, or something that you capture with Adobe Capture, like a pattern, and then apply it in Substance Painter or Dimension or Medium. And so that kind of things that, yeah, absolutely, they are. It's a big topic at Adobe right now, like to make things as modular as possible, as future-proof as possible as well when it comes to devices, graphics APIs, the kind of things. So, but it's a lot of work, but yeah, there's a lot of that happening in the background.
Well, that brings me to a question that I'm sure you've heard a million times and are tired of hearing, which is if all these tools are going to be mixed together and you want to be able to bounce back and forth, one of the benefits of the Creative Cloud is that if someone buys Photoshop, they have Premiere, and so it's easier for the product designers. So here's the question: Is Substance going to be part of Creative Cloud, and if so, when?
So yeah, we've heard that question like a lot of times. Yep. So the honest answer is we don't know exactly, and I'm sorry to say that because it's the truth. Like really, what is happening right now, and especially right now, everything is like scrambled anyway. Like, what do we need to do, and how do we adapt? What changes can we make, and how can we be more efficient, etc. So we were all asking, and all Adobe asking these questions. The thing is, the plan is to make sure that we target the right people. So, like being part of the Creative Cloud offering somewhere, yes. Is it going to be with all apps? We don't know, because there are questions about like what should be in there, what's the future of that anyway. And so we realize that the users are a very different still, right? So we want to make sure we understand what's necessary here, how we can target the users the best, really, and what price makes sense. And so we're very much in that process of like trying out things and coming up with ideas. So really, what I'm sure of is, yes, at some point there will be a 3D offering right there somewhere. Will it be included at no additional cost or completely by default? That I don't know, or partly or completely. That I don't know really.
Right.
It's still very much in there.
Yeah. I think that that is really useful information for people because it explains a lot. Like back in the Creative Suite days, there were different versions of the suite, and there's now so much in Creative Cloud that I could see. Certainly, users are already complaining that I only use half this stuff, right? I mean, I always like having something there to discover, but not everybody is, excited about that. And so it sounds like it's not a question of will it or won't it. It's a question of how you're going to do it. Right. That's what I'm hearing.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think it just has to, the way we do it, it just has to make sense for the users.
Yeah.
We just have to find a way that it makes the most sense, that is the most fair for the user. And that's a tough question. And so it takes us a long time to figure out.
Yeah, it's complicated. And by the way, it's a shared view. What is useful for the user is a shared view at the top level, like CEO level, chief product officer level. My boss, Scott Belsky, like he's always asking, well, is it useful for the user first? If so, yes, do it. If not, don't do it. That's it. Period. That's very simple.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's it. And then like of course you have to deal with make sure that it will be interesting financially, obviously, but financial success is and should be a byproduct of like fitness to the user's needs, right? And so this is the philosophy everybody's trying to push here, and more, and I'm pretty sure you will be seeing more and more. Actually, what's happening now is great. I'm quite excited. As soon as we're done with that craziness that's happening right now, and it's only the fourth time I refer to it, so it might be too much in my mind right now. But anyway, I'm pretty sure that it will be interesting to see what Adobe comes up with. In fact,
yeah. So I mean, let's talk about that. I'm doing the podcast from home now. And and my co-hosts are as well, and we had to figure out a solution without breaking our publishing stride. And people, it's changed it's changed the lives of everyone on the planet, COVID-19. And so, with the way you've described your organization as like being nimble and powered by sort of like random opportunities for innovation, how do you work when you have to be so separated? Did you have a lot of remote staff previously?
Well, I can talk for myself. Like the toughest part for myself is like having kids at home.
Oh, yeah.
So I can consider myself lucky because we don't have anything sick and not in the short, like a very close family, like in France as well. So it's okay. Like I cannot complain really, but the thing is that it's complicated to have like kids at home and like do the work and do the homeschooling and not going crazy and not having like kids turning into junkies and screen junkies and games. By the way, thank you guys for fucking games that are so addictive. Anyway, so it's so that's the toughest part because like the reality is we have teams all over the world already, so we're very much used to having like virtual meetings. Everybody is seeing. A lot of people are seeing actually an increase in productivity because there is no commute. There is less physical one-ones or interactions and like lost time somehow, even though these times are super important as well. But like right now, for a limited amount of time, it actually can be pretty effective if everybody's on the same boat. Because if suddenly you realize like, okay, I have people who are working from home and some others like in meetings, actually it's at the disadvantage of people working from home because you cannot like have the same kind of interactions in a meeting where people are sitting in the same room when you are on screen somewhere, right? And because if you start saying something, everybody stops talking. It has different dynamics. But if everybody is behind a screen, then it suddenly works differently and better. But yeah, as far as I can tell, also like a lot of people are in need of social interaction. So that's missing a lot and driving everybody a little bit crazy, really. But it's complicated. The good part of it all, like for game developers, is the same thing. It's mostly virtual, like online, like on the computer type of work. So really, if you know what you're supposed to be doing for the next like sprint, 2 weeks, you can do it at home, right? So yeah, that works to some degree.
Yeah, as we said at the beginning, we have 6 months to a year plan. So if it doesn't stretch too much, we're good. After that, we can answer to anything. But
yeah.
No, we're good. We're in a good place.
Well, that's good. Yeah, I think those of us who are information workers who deal with computers. Yeah. I think we're lucky in that we're more adaptable by nature, and we are lucky to be in a situation that is itself much more adaptable. I just find myself thinking how lucky I am, and also not knowing what other people are dealing with.
Yeah, absolutely. We're the lucky ones. Mm-hmm. And when you look, even the market knows it. Like when you look at NASDAQ, it's going pretty okay right now. Mm-hmm. It's recovered already. And if you start to try to understand what that means, it means that the technology companies are the companies like we know will survive in this thing, right?
Yeah.
Compared to an airline company or hotel brands, obviously it's going to be way trickier for this. And I'm not even talking about the essential workers. Like it's tough, right? Really. So for us, we're the lucky ones. We complain about like having kids at home and having our back hurting and not seeing people, but we're not dying. We haven't lost our jobs. So yeah, we should be grateful.
Yeah. Well, it's every episode of our show and every conversation I have, we devote some time to this. So I appreciate you guys doing that with me just now.
Hey, do y'all like this podcast?
Yes.
Good. Have you left a review?
I think it's unethical for us to leave a review, but
yes. Well, other people have left reviews. Here's one that I thought was neat. This is from the best Greg the Gamer. It says chill, and then it says chill, period, and then Paul. I don't know what that means, but I appreciate that they think we're chill.
I mean, do they?
There's 2 chills, Mark. Well, you can leave reviews too.
And not just really helpful ones. You can leave cryptic ones like that.
Yes, give us a puzzle to solve. Reviews help the show get noticed.
Yes.
Especially 5-star ones. And we'll read your message on the show, just like we did here. Those 3 words.
Yeah, the bar is very low.
So thank you very much for leaving us reviews. We really appreciate it.
And you can do that on Apple Podcasts or anywhere else where you get your podcasts. And like Steven said, it really does help. And I think that just like any kind of ask we make of the listener, you think, oh, sure, that sounds like a good thing for people to do, and then you don't do it. But be the person who does it, for crying out loud.
Right now.
Yeah, go on.
Yeah.
Let's get back to licenses, because there's one other question, which is the future of the Perpetual license, the Steam version. You've certainly heard this. People are reflexively nervous that may not be an option, especially for indie developers who are not on the Creative Cloud train. Is their future secure?
Well, for as long as we can say yes, because there is no plan right now, right? Mm-hmm. The idea is like we've realized these are 2 different audiences. It's not like it's not a problem to keep that one on the side somewhere, because like some people really prefer that. Like I understand, and we respect that. So far so good, right? So I mean, if you would you have asked us that question like 3 years ago when we were still like completely independent? I would have told you exactly the same. Like for foreseeable future, yes. Mm-hmm. And we don't know what the future holds really. And I would say the same answer applies now. Of course, Adobe is mainly doing subscription, but not only. There's still doctor tools that you can find on like places that are that have this business model. I mean, we don't want to be extreme, right? And so far, yes. I mean, the answer is yes. And currently, yes, there is no plan to stopping that.
Right.
So I don't know how much time it will last. I don't know, but I don't like to talk about forever because we don't know really. And
right.
If you ask me, I'm a scientist myself. Like, I won't tell something that is not true, right? So it's that forever does not exist.
Yeah.
We don't know. But for now, for the foreseeable future, yes.
Right.
That's all we can say. And I understand, by the way. I understand how that makes people nervous. Because you can understand foreseeable future as, maybe 1 year, maybe 6 months, maybe 2 years, maybe 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. Everybody has the same, not the same, actually, different view on that, what that means really. And I understand that. And the problem is that we cannot give more than what we don't know ourselves, right?
Yeah.
So anyway.
Well,
it's real. It's truth, right? Anyways.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I can hear it in your voice. It's like you don't want to disappoint people with the answer, right? But you don't want to lead them astray. You want to give them as much honesty as you can. And in context of your previous answer about Creative Cloud, I guess I understand better why you're not as ready to promise anything because there is still things being figured out. I mean, Adobe as a company could decide next year to sell everything perpetually. Who knows, right? I mean, you may know better than me.
Exactly.
But, right?
No, but exactly. I know. Yeah, exactly. We don't know really. And
Yeah, but I think that the point also is that we've never known that for. We'll see people asking us, what about in 2 years? What about in 3 years? Will my sim license still be available to upgrade? As Sébastien say, if you had asked us 10 years ago, what would be the state of the license, the year after, we would not be able to give you an answer either. Because everything moves so fast and we can change our mind because of something happened or because we see an opportunity or because, there's a new market coming up. Anything can change what we say now. So that's why we don't want to commit because we don't want to tell you something that's not going to be true in the end.
Right.
And by the way, I remember what I wanted to say. What I wanted to say was, we want to make sure though that the main offer that we're pushing, and I don't know which one it will be. That's the answer, but the main answer we will be pushing most probably will be the subscription as it is right now, which by the way, we're seeing as the main one picked up by even the indie developers and indie users and enthusiasts on our side. We've been seeing that growing super fast compared to the Perpetual. Perpetual is staying steady or small. But anyway, the one that is picked up by the users is a subscription already. Anyway, if it's the one we want to push in the future, we want to make sure, and it's our responsibility to make sure that this offer is the best, right? And it's a win-win in the end. So that means that can mean many things, but subscription to me means every time you pay, you need to have more value for what you pay, right? And so it comes with more content, more features, obviously, but more opportunities. I won't disclose too much about what I have in mind here, but we want to make sure that when you subscribe to what we have to offer, you get something out of it, and that makes sense, and it's a win-win. And I wanted to do these cheesy T-shirts that win-win wins. That's beautiful, right?
Nice. To run on what Sébastien was saying, when we introduced the subscription first a few years ago, we came up with the idea of having that rent to own model. That was I don't think ever done in the software world before. And the goal was to say we want to make a subscription that's still fair. And I think our goal for that new offer at Adobe will be the same. We want that subscription to be fair, and we don't want people to say the subscription I'm paying every month and I'm not getting worth my money. We want to make sure that nobody can say this is too much for what I'm getting. So that's why, again, it's taking time, and we're figuring out the best way to do that so that people are happy with subscription, which is not an easy task.
I mean, that sort of dovetails into the our main audience, which is indie developers, and it can be kind of difficult to look at a product that has so much potential and such a relatively high learning curve and jump on board that train. So what do you do to get people who maybe are, they work in Blender, they say, well, I don't have a lot of time, so I'm going to go flat shaded art style and make that work. How do you convince those people that this tool is for them?
One thing I would say, maybe and then I'll let you, Jérémie, say, but one thing I would say is they see what other users have been producing with it, and so it sounds like it sounds bad, but like it speaks for itself right now. Like when we see what the users come up with, we're like, okay, that's awesome, and that's a living proof of if you use it, you can achieve that level, right? If you start learning the tool, because there is a learning curve, if you start investigating in these tools, it's not a lost cause, because definitely you will be able to do what the other guys have been doing, and it's a proof of that. So that speaks better than anything, I would say. And then we have ways to we always try to have like a fair pricing, a lot of learning materials that comes with it. We visit a lot of users. So for small developers, we try to be present on at trade shows. We try to do like live streams. We try to do as much as we can to get access to it as easily as possible. Lately, we've been resetting the start date for all trials. For all of our software, so that everybody at home can try again. So that helps. So we try as much as we can to help with people at home or in smaller studios to start with something. And years ago, I'm not supposed to do that and say that again, but years ago we used to say, well, pirate it first. And then when you're happy with it, when you're funded, when you're making money, then you go with it. And that was actually anyway, we try to ease to make the entry door as low as possible, right? But that's fair, right? That's fair for everyone.
And I think when it comes to the learning curve, I would say if you use Blender, you've went through the steepest learning curve in the business. So I think you should be fine with Substance Painter. I mean, Substance Painter and Alchemist have really a pretty easy learning curve. If you go through on Substance Academy, you'll find tutorials, and in a couple of days you can be up to speed on how to use Substance Painter. Substance Designer is another beast. And even though it has a very steep learning curve, it has to be seen more as an investment in the future, just because that steep learning curve is going to take you a lot of work at first, will pay off in the long run for sure. And that's why all the studios I've picked up Substance Designer, because even though it requires a technical mind, it requires a lot of work at first, the payoff over multiple games, multiple projects is so huge that it makes sense for them to get into the tool. Yeah.
One of the things that in the keynote that interested me in this this topic is your plans with Adobe Capture, and you mentioned it a little bit, but as a way to sort of get started. How do you see that as? Because I could almost see that as someone who has learned the ropes and has a good workflow established. Might be hard for them to do it this other way. Do you know what I mean? Like, and this goes to all the different constituencies you have. Like, do you find sometimes that the audience you serve in this way is the things you do for them might actually pull away from the needs of another audience that you have?
I don't think so, because when we try to, with all the different tools and services, we try to cater to a lot of people that have different technical level, but we try to always make sure that things are simple but not simplistic. So that even if an app it makes something simple, like capture materials very easily. Alchemist you can like create materials in one click. It's not simplistic, which means that somebody who knows the ropes and who has like no baby Substance Designer can still use these tools and get good quality out of it and still good enough control out of it that it will not dismiss it as a newbie tool or something like that. So we're trying to keep that approach in all the different tools, so that, yes, some tools, definitely Alchemist captures for somebody who never created material in their life. It's super easy. They can get something great. But to somebody who is a professional free artist, I'm sure we'll see when Capture comes out with that new material feature to create those really cool materials from a photo. I expect a lot of pro artists and even game studios, AAA game studios using that feature. Because, again, it may be simple to use, but the results are not, the quality is still good out of the gate.
So having multiple ways in seems like, nothing but positive in your view.
I think so, yeah.
Well, let me, one specific question about Blender. You guys don't have a Blender plugin, right?
We do not.
We do not, yeah.
Explain yourselves.
Yeah, we'd love to, technically we have one, right?
Uh-huh.
So but we could not release it because we're not sure, we're not 100% confident in, it's a legal thing, right? We don't want to breach the license terms.
It's like an open source issue.
Yeah, exactly. The GPL license. We want to make sure we don't breach anything in doing what we're doing. So we've been exploring in the past ways to make sure we were not doing things the wrong way, and we're still exploring new ways. But there is a bit of a fuzzy line here, and so we want to make sure we don't cross it.
Okay.
And, yeah.
Do you have any kind of so it's something that you're investigating at the very least?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah. We've been doing so much work around that, and it's
our artists generally use Blender every day.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We have hardcore Blender users internally. They love it, and yeah, it's a shame. We know it's one of these bad situations, and we don't have any good answers for.
Right.
That's one.
Yeah, well, it's the minefield of open source, which that can be worth it. Worth the trouble sometimes. So there's no timeline with which to get people's hopes up yet.
No timeline.
Okay.
And yeah, I mean, as you're saying, it's the blessing and a curve of the system here. It's a double-edged sword. It's great and complicated to deal with at the same time. So, yeah.
Well, I've kept the both of you for a very long time. Before we sign off, is there anything that you want to tell audiences like ours that I didn't already get to?
So I would say just, especially for indie game, I think a lot of people in the Substance team actually come from the indie scene and come from game developers. And so we're aware of the struggles and the different things happening to game devs and especially smaller ones. And so we're really, even though we're part of Adobe now, we're still very open and to discussion and to, everything like that. So if you go on I would encourage anybody who wants to build a game to go, on our, Discord server and on our Facebook channels and our forum. You'll always find a direct link to the staff. We always have people, sometimes developers, sometimes tech artists, product manager. They're always kind of lurking on these different platforms, and we're always happy to help because it's like the best thing the best part of our job is to see what people make with the tools.
Mm-hmm.
And there's plenty of amazing indie games that are being built with Substance, and we're super proud of that. So, we're always ready to help.
Yeah. One thing I would say would be the level of, passion in my team and the whole 3D division at Adobe now, between like the Substance team, the Dimension team, Mixamo, and now Medium, that we acquired from, Oculus. This is a team of like so passionate people. It's great. So yeah, we have that, and it's bigger than ever actually, and it's accelerating. So I'm excited, in fact. And yeah, when it comes to the indie developers, especially, yes, absolutely. We love that world. Really, we love that. It's awesome. It's the most fun. It's where it's the salt of life, right? I love it. We love it, and yeah, that's awesome.
That's great.
Keep doing awesome, and not too many games for kids, though. Please don't help me as a dad.
Well, again, thank you both for joining me, and giving enough so much of your time and talking about all the new stuff coming to the Substance suite, and thoughts in the future, and the uncertain, ever-changing, evolving plans that you have. It's great to hear about.
Thank you. Thanks very much for the invitation.
Thank you, Mark.
Hey, that's our show. If you haven't already, subscribe to Nice Games Club in your favorite podcast app, and be sure to give it a good review if you liked it, or a nice like us. We need to know you're out there, so leave a review and tell all your friends too. We also want to hear directly from you, so follow us on Twitter and all the other things at Nice Games Club, where Dale tweets about game dev resources and also provides many, many pictures of cats. Let us know how we're doing, send us your topics, and ask us your questions. Lastly, you can find out more about the show, your nice hosts, our nice guests, as well as get all the links and notes from this and other episodes at nicegames.club. So until we start again, remember to
play nice
and make nice.
I want to keep recording. I want to do a little funny thing where I ask you what you thought of the interview, and for you to both slowly reveal that you haven't heard it yet.
Okay.